From Diamond Pharmacy Services, this is PodcastRx, a monthly show that takes you behind the counter of the nation's largest correctional pharmacy provider. We bring you conversations with pharmacists, nurses, managers, and other Diamond staff about the topics and issues we see in corrections, long-term care, and community health settings. Our chats aren't limited to purely pharmacy topics, and they aren't strictly clinical either. So if you're a healthcare provider or just enjoy healthcare podcasts, we think you'll enjoy this show. On this episode, we welcome Optics Clinical Pharmacist Supervisor Zane Gray and special guest Mitchell Tonkin to the show. Mitch is in his final year of pharmacy school at Duquesne University and had the opportunity to intern with Zane and the Optics clinical team. We talked to Mitch about his formative pharmacy experiences, what makes Duquesne University a great pharmacy school, and of course, what he learned on rotation here at Diamond. And we get Zane's perspectives on how a Diamond Pharmacy internship is designed to make you a better pharmacist and provide healthy doses of real-world pharmacy experience. On a special note, we recorded this episode during Mitch's final week on rotation here. We'd like to wish him the very best as he moves forward in his pharmacy education and ultimately career. I'm Adam Campbell, and welcome to PodcastRx. So I'd like to welcome to PodcastRx Zane Gray and Mitch Tonkin. How are you gentlemen doing today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Oh, doing great.
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
It's good. It's good to have you back, Zane, after that Marathon Optics podcast we had a few months back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mitch, I consider you to be a very special guest because you were the first pharmacy student that we've had on the show. Mitch is a pharmacy intern here at Diamond, finishing up your final year at Duquesne, right?
That's correct.
And you get to be here under the tutelage of Zane and the Optics Clinical Pharmacy team. So, Mitch, I just wanted to ask right away, your background. Where are you from, for starters? What inspired you to study pharmacy, and how did that lead to where you're sitting right now?
All right. So where I'm from Blairsville, so pretty local, right down the road.
Yeah.
For the past 2 years, I've worked at Mainline Pharmacy in Blairsville. Liked it there. The first time I wanted to be a pharmacist was probably in 10th grade when my teacher made you do one of those what do you want to be when you grow up things.
Yeah.
A family friend of ours was a pharmacist, so I went for that, and, well, here I am now.
Yeah, didn't have to think about it too hard. That wasn't all that long ago, really.
Nope. And then at Duquesne, we pick our rotations. So last year I got to pick, and I know I wanted to stay local, like I said, so here I am.
Yeah, just right up Route 119. I wanted to ask you both about this because, Zane, I know you're an alum of Duquesne as well. And we've talked to a lot of Duquesne grads here just that work at Diamond. What about Duquesne's pharmacy school makes it such an attractive option for anyone studying pharmacy? What made both of you want to go there?
Do you want to start, Mitch?
Sure, I can go. So there was two main things for me. The reputation speaks for itself at Duquesne Pharmacy. They have a pretty good program there. And then secondly, they offer a pretty good security there for pharmacy students. So like other schools, a lot of times it's pretty competitive against other students. But at Duquesne, once you're into the program, they usually take care of their own, I guess.
Yeah. In what ways do they do that?
So it's based off a GPA. So as long as you maintain a GPA or standard GPA, you get to progress through the program. And if at any time you're having any difficulties, they really try to make sure that you can succeed. They offer tutoring services and anything extra to help you get through. Not to say that's any easier than any of the other schools, but
yeah. Zane, what about your experiences with Duquesne?
Okay, so when I was going to college, I'm kind of unique, and I didn't know what I wanted to do whenever I grew up at all. My parents wouldn't let me go to nursing school. They're both nurses, so I was like, pick something else in healthcare. I applied to 2 pharmacy schools in addition to like a whole bunch of other programs. I applied to Pitt and Duquesne, got in at Duquesne, and what Mitch is referring to, I think, is probably like the 0-6 status for Duquesne. Once you're in Duquesne's pharmacy school, you're in it as long as you continue to be successful, which is pretty advantageous compared to Pitt and some of the other ones. So that's what kind of I wanted to go there. Also, just the school in general, outside of just pharmacy. If you've ever been to Duquesne, you're kind of like, you're in the city, but you're not.
Yeah.
When you're on campus, you're just up on the hill, kind of like in your own world. and then you can go and get the benefits of being in the city whenever you want.
Yeah.
So it's awesome to stay there and go to the campus. And even like this coming weekend is our homecoming.
Oh, wow.
We have to go back to that.
Yeah.
So it's still nice. They do a good job of like keeping you involved at Duquesne too.
Yeah.
Even after you just start going there.
For sure. And that's that part of it where they really take care of you once you're in. They make sure you're going to succeed. That's really great.
Mm-hmm.
Really great to avail yourselves of that. So Mitch, how did of course you're local, you're from Blairsville, just down the road, but how else did Diamond Pharmacy and particularly the optics clinical team, which Zane is the head of, how did that get on your radar as a student pharmacist? Were you at all familiar with Diamond before you started pharmacy school, or I assume you were, but
I've always heard mention to it from other pharmacists I spoke to, but I've never actually spoken to a pharmacist from Diamond.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really know what it was all about. I knew that pharmacists work all hours of the night and they package things, but I knew nothing about like the corrections aspect or long-term care aspect. So to be honest, no, I didn't know much about them going in. The way I learned about it though was they have listings for us in school for where you want to do your internships. And I read Zane has to give a synopsis of what the rotation's like, and it sounded pretty interesting. And again, it was local, so definitely a reason I chose it.
Yeah. And Zane, given what you both just said about being connected to Duquesne still, it was very easy for you, Zane, to go back and advertise those opportunities for students coming up.
Yeah, for sure. Whenever I took over the rotation for this, I wanted to really give them more of a well-rounded experience of Diamond. So I updated like our listing for us there and kind of gotten more involved with the experiential ed team, kind of like to market internally there, our practice site. So yeah, it was, did a much better job of like marketing us to our students.
Yeah, that's excellent. Now, Zane, you've been with Diamond as long as I've been here. I've been here 8 years, but I think you've been here just as long, if not longer. Did you have a student experience similar to Mitch's?
I didn't have any. I've been here for 10 years, and
okay.
I haven't had an experience with Diamond as a student.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
I just came here right after. This is my first place to work after.
Okay, wasn't sure. Going back to you, Mitch, with your experience, so what kind of projects have you been exposed to working with optics?
Yeah.
And what are you working on right now?
So Zane's kept me pretty busy here on rotation. I'm towards the end of my rotation now, but through my time here, I've worked on different patient cases. Like at the beginning of every week, he gives me a list of patients to run through. And using their online system, I get to look at the patient as a whole, their vitals, their disease states, medications they're on, and evaluate them and come up with what we call SOAP note, which is basically a patient summary. I've worked on different presentations and have presented to the optics team, such as like disease states, or I even participated in a journal club where I evaluated a research article. A couple of things outside the optics team. He sent me up to the main building a couple times, and I've got to interact with the different production pharmacists up there and some compounding stuff. So it's been a wide variety of things.
Yeah, most definitely. And because you're coming in from the outside, what about Diamond particularly stands out with regard to how pharmacy's practiced here?
It would definitely have to be the vast patient population that Diamond serves. I mean, everything from corrections to long-term care, and then also the volume of medications that they disperse. At a typical retail pharmacy, I'm used to 200 to maybe 400 prescriptions a day on holidays. Here, an average day is 20,000 prescriptions that go out to patients all across the country. So it's a really eye-opening thing to see here in small-town Indiana.
Yeah. I've said before, when I first started working here, I knew of the company name, but I didn't realize the operation was that massive up here on the hill. So no doubt you had a similar experience. we kind of spoke to this earlier, but I'll still ask you again, Zane. So Mitch is not the first student to come here in rotation. What are your goals, for getting those students as well-rounded as possible, both in optics and throughout Diamond when they're here?
So my main goal whenever we were designing these rotation experiences was to identify the student and kind of gear it towards what they need to be a better pharmacy student for the rest of their time on rotation, or to be a better pharmacist whenever they're eventually done. Like, that's our whole purpose for what they're doing right now. So the day-to-day is kind of difficult with our department because we're dealing with a high volume of different clinicians all through the United States. So our turnaround time sometimes is like super quick. They're going to call and they want a response immediately. Sometimes we do give them the opportunity to, Mitch will assist with like researching something and providing a response as well. So that's kind of the day-to-day. But we've also added some additional pieces like he talked about, where similar to what you would do if you were practicing in maybe an acute or ambulatory care setting, you get presented with a patient, have to work up the patient and provide recommendations to the provider. We do that every week here. We also get them to experience presenting. So we do a ton of presenting throughout the year, whether that be internally or externally. We do it in different capacities, whether it be like recording something or doing it live in front of an audience. So Mitch has gotten the ability to do that while he's here, which just makes it's different because whenever you're a student, you're just tasked with memorizing a lot of things over and over again and regurgitating them here.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to get through to them is that they have to think about how they want to explain something to them or go into more detail about something that they might not grasp the concept of right now. So it's a lot of self-guided researching, learning what you do know, what you don't know. Maybe you knew something too, which often what our students find is they think they know something and then they come here and then we teach them something different. They're like, oh wait, maybe I didn't know this that well. So sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they have like no experience with something and we have to build from the ground up too. I remember like a certain situation where I was just trying to teach a basic concept to a student and they just couldn't get it. So I had to like deal with them for multiple hours trying to get what I wanted them to say out of them. But it took, eventually they got there. So it is like a more different setting because there's no patients here.
Yeah.
So you're not dealing with patients directly, but everything we do is geared towards patients.
Right. And so much goes on that you're going to get exposed to so many of those scenarios, like you just outlined there. So, Mitch, what I'd ask you then, in where you're at in your pharmacy education now, what would you recommend to students who are searching around for an opportunity like the one you found here, or who are approaching that position with looking for internships? What do you recommend you look for, or they look for, when they're on that hunt?
As far as approaching internships, I would say, look for something different, look for something interesting. Like Zane was talking, like here they serve unique patient populations and different disease states that, in class, you'll never see this. But here, I mean, you see it every day. For example, pulmonary artery hypertension. There was like maybe a 5-minute lecture spent about it. Here, I presented on it, and there's patients all across the country that have that disease state. So I'd say look for something different, interesting. And once you're there, don't be afraid to ask questions. I know that's a pretty common comment, but I've asked Zane tons of different questions on tons of different things that he sees every day, but I don't get to see from the day to day, and so it's a pretty unique learning experience, especially a rotation like this.
I have to think about that too every time because I'm like sitting here talking to my students and I'm like, I see this stuff every day. Yeah. But I have to think back. I'm like, I didn't learn about this in school ever. So like I learned it all here. So like it's a good learning opportunity for me at that point to be like, oh, this is what I know. Everything I know about this that I learned while I was working here.
And obviously you'll take the time to help the students understand that even if they don't right away.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. And you'll get that here in general.
Oh yeah, my knowledge base has grown immensely since being here. From the big disease states down to the little disease states.
Yeah.
And everywhere in between.
So, Mitch, what are the next steps then as you finish up your time in pharmacy school, and where do you see yourself going with your practice after you're done?
Well, first off, I want to graduate and then pass my boards.
Of course.
Like everybody, like every pharmacy student wants. And then after that, I've considered residency or go ahead and starting the job search. To be honest, I don't know. I approach every rotation with, I guess, an open mind. So, I mean, every rotation I do, it seems like I want to do something different in the pharmacy world.
To clarify, how many rotations have you had now, and are you on, I should say?
So far, I've had 3 different rotations: one in a retail setting, one in a managed care setting. Mm-hmm. I know I don't want to do managed care, so
okay,
that's a benefit. I really liked it here. I could see myself here in the future. I don't know. I still have, I think, about 4 or 5 rotations left, so
yeah, I
might change here in a month. I mean, these rotations are cool because I get to spend 5 or 6 weeks at a different place and see a completely different pharmacy practice.
Yeah, that's and it's just great that that's built into your studies that you're able to do that. Not all career paths and learning tracks have that, so that's fantastic. If you had to summarize, Mitch, what would you say was the most surprising or enlightening fact or concept that you learned on your rotation?
So on rotation, just in general, I've learned that there's a variety of different places you can practice, just like I was saying. You even see it here within Diamond itself. There's the optics team, there's account pharmacists, production pharmacists, compounding. So even here, there's a vast amount of things that you can do. But I guess that's the biggest takeaway.
And of all the exposure you had to every area of the company, whether it was optics or production pharmacy, what would you say is the one experience you're going to carry the most with you from this rotation at Diamond?
The thing I want to say is, or the thing that I will carry the most with me is to never stay stagnant. Learning from optics, there's so much to learn, and there's so much that comes out new all the time. So I never thought about reading a research article or, refamiliarizing myself with how a disease is treated. Every year there's different medications that come out, different things to learn about. So as a pharmacist, I think you need to continue to learn and adapt in practice.
Most definitely. So Zane, given that you have a lot of experience with marketing this rotation opportunity to pharmacy students, if there happens to be a pharmacy student listening right now who says, hey, I want to go to Diamond, I want to get this experience that Mitch had, how would they go about getting information on who to get started with, who to talk to?
All right. So if you are at the University of Pittsburgh, Duquesne, LECOM, or West Virginia University, we already have registered this Diamond Pharmacy as a practice site. So whenever you're going through the experiential ed process for your final year of professional school, we'll be listed there, and you can come take that rotation site, and you'll be able to experience Diamond. If you're at a school that I did not name and you're interested in coming to Diamond, just email me at zgray, Gray, at diamondpharmacy.com, and I can reach out to your experiential education office and get that set up. It doesn't usually take that long to get us added as a practice site for a different university. Or if it doesn't work out where, hey, there doesn't fit into your time block and you just want to come for a day and get a tour of the facility or anything, you can just drop me an email as well, and I can usually set that up for a one-day tour.
Excellent. So many opportunities. Mitch, so glad you had such a great experience here.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on here.
Absolutely.
Glad I could
my pleasure.
Be a student pharmacist here.
Yeah, for sure. And Zane, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me back.
Of course. Thank you, gentlemen. This podcast features conversations with healthcare professionals. Their statements and opinions discussed herein are for informational purposes only. This podcast should not be considered professional medical advice and should not be used as a substitute for the advice of an appropriately qualified and licensed healthcare professional. Therefore, listeners must not rely on the statements made herein.
PodcastRx is a production of Diamond Pharmacy Services, the nation's largest correctional pharmacy provider. Catch our new episodes on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Please rate the show and leave us a review. And if you have a topic you'd like to hear about on the show, or you'd like to share your thoughts on an episode, you can email us at podcastrx@diamondpharmacy.com.